Can you tell me one thing that you learned in working on this project and researching it that you learned about Malcolm X that surprised you?
I think what I really learned that surprised me, there were two things. One was the degree to which Malcolm was being watched and followed and his activities disrupted by federal and state agencies. As early as 1950, when Malcolm is in prison, and he writes a letter protesting the Korean War, that becomes the first page in his file for the FBI. This is before he even encounters Islam. So that is how early he was being watched. And then in 1954, when he begins organizing temples on behalf of the Nation of Islam, one of his first meetings that he holds in Boston is in a family home. It's a small meeting, maybe 10 or 12 people. One of them is an informant. And this is before the Nation of Islam becomes the kind of public phenomenon that it would become in the late 50s. So this is how early he was being watched and surveilled. The other thing that I really was happy to learn about Malcolm was more about the time he spent in Africa. And in this book, Dr. Marable uses Malcolm's diaries, as well as news reports and articles that Malcolm wrote while he was in Africa during his last trip, which was from like July 1964 to November. He spent about 4 months in Africa. And this is not covered in his autobiography. And what we get in this book is almost day-by-day detail of who Malcolm met with, what he did, what he studied, the way he was taking in the culture, the way it was shaping his political outlook. And I think that those are the two, for me, greatest learnings in working on this project.
So we were speaking briefly before about the themes that people were missing from the book and the themes that you were hoping people would take away. What themes?
Yeah, I think that there are several really important themes that this book strongly conveys. One is, first of all, the book is a incredible work that rescues the man from the myth. It is neither an idolization of Malcolm, nor is it a demonization of Malcolm. It is a humanized portrait of Malcolm in his complexity and all that he was. There were things that Professor Marable found about Malcolm and that we found as well that were awesome. And that there were things that warranted criticism. And you get both of that in this book. And so the first thing is this complex human portrait of Malcolm. The second is Malcolm's evolution, his political evolution as a Pan-Africanist, and his growing identification with Africa. And the third, for me as well, is the way Islam and his relationship to the Muslim world facilitated that global connection for him. And lastly, this book raises really important questions, unanswered questions about Malcolm's assassination. And I think that those are some of the more important themes that come across as you read through the book.
Well, that's actually a perfect segue into the next question I wanted to ask, which is really about the elephant in the room.